Shabbat Shalom. First, I want to express true gratitude for the opportunity to read Haftarah for our community this morning. I know we've been reflecting and maybe even joking a lot about birthdays up here on the Bima lately, but in all seriousness, today, the 4th of Av, is my birthday on the Jewish calendar.
Wow.
For a number of years now, I've been reading this Haftarah, the Haftarah for Shabbat Hazon, in honor of my birthday. And each year I reflect a little bit differently on what this time of year means to me and what this time of year means for all of us as part of the Jewish calendar. Shabbat Hazon is always the Shabbat immediately before Tisha B'Av. And on this Shabbat, the first parasha of the book of Devarim, of Deuteronomy, is always read. Devarim, Deuteronomy, is the last of the 5 books of Moses, the last book in our Chumash. As we read from the Sefer Torah during services, we see the right side of the scroll getting bigger and the left side of the scroll getting smaller. And in the back of our minds, we have the beginnings of awareness that we're getting close to finishing this year's cycle of Torah reading, which we know culminates on Simchat Torah. Our Haftarah this week and all our Haftarot during this time of year also help show us how the arc of this season unfolds. Shabbat Hazon is the 3rd Haftarah in a series of 10 special Haftarot leading up to, take a deep breath, the high holidays. Shabbat Hazon is our 3rd and final Haftarah of admonition intended to prepare us for the solemnity, sadness, and grief of Tisha B'Av. But starting next week on Shabbat, we begin 7 Haftarot of consolation, 7 special weekly gifts of uplift as we enjoy the last weeks of summer and prepare to reflect on the year ahead. We don't always pay such close attention to this time of year on the Jewish calendar. We're taking vacations and going to summer camp and hanging out by the pool. Yet when we do turn our attention to this particular moment in the rhythm of our Jewish year, we can make the most of our summer. And at the same time, we can best prepare ourselves for the Jewish holidays ahead. So here's how we do this. Let's start by taking a look at the big picture, giving ourselves an overview in time of the months ahead. And as we do this, let's skip to the end first and speak briefly about the part we all know is coming. In time, we'll have Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, our high holy days, which are without question a peak experience on our Jewish calendar. Now don't worry, we'll be talking a lot more about those days as we get closer and when we get there. Now just a few days after Yom Kippur, we have our holiday of Sukkot, giving us the gift of spending time in our sukkah with friends and family, in which we celebrate summer rolling into fall, and we celebrate the completion of the year's Torah reading, the completion of the book of Deuteronomy, on Simchat Torah. We all know that this is all coming eventually, but we can relax. We're not there yet.
You mean you and I can relax?
Well, we kind of fall into a little bit of a different category. But in general, we can relax because we're not there yet. We can relax because we don't have to do this tomorrow, right? You know? And even before all of these holidays that we were just talking about, we have the whole month of Elul. The letters that spell Elul, Aleph, Lamed, Vav, Lamed, can be understood as an acronym for the phrase Ani ledodi v'dodi li. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. This phrase from Shir HaShirim, from the Song of Songs, is written about love between two people. But when we apply it to the month of Elul, it speaks about the relationship between an individual and God, teaching us that during the month of Elul, we can become closer with God, that our relationship with God can become even more loving. And in the month of Elul, we start to blow shofar. The shofar blowing reminds me of the bell that is sounded at the end of a long running race, so the athletes on the track know that the last lap is finally here. When we hear the sound of the shofar, we know that it's the last month of summer. It isn't over yet, but we're getting close. But again, we don't have to worry. We aren't yet to the month of Elul. We're just now beginning the month before Elul, the month of Av. The first day of Av was this past Wednesday. We announced the arrival of the month of Av last week during our service on Shabbat, and we referred to it in this official announcement by the month's official name, which is Menachem Av. The word Av means father, and Menachem means comforter or consoler. So the official name for our month translates to something like the comforting father. Now, in my family, this month is both celebratory and complicated. We have a birthday, an anniversary, and a yahrzeit all within the span of 2 weeks. Each year, I'm reminded that the emotions of those days don't cancel each other out. The sadness and celebration don't combine to create a feeling of calm. Instead, it's the opposite. Sadness and celebration coexist side by side in ways that usually don't feel sensible or logical. Now, on our Jewish calendar in the month of Av, we also have a mix of sadness and celebration. We began with Rosh Chodesh, which we celebrated a few days ago, and today, of course, is Shabbat Chazon, giving us our last reminder that Tisha B'Av is coming up soon. And next week, on Wednesday night and Thursday, we will observe Tisha B'Av, our holiday commemorating the destruction of our holy temple in ancient Jerusalem. I wonder if even if we follow all the observances of Tisha B'Av to the very best of our ability, if we can ever come close to understanding what it was like to be alive when our holy temple was destroyed. In that time, we brought gifts of food, grain, meat, and produce to the priests in the temple. The priest would cook, and everyone would eat together, and of course, we would share a portion of our food with God. Now, this process wasn't just physically nourishing, it was spiritually connective. This was our ritual for connecting with God. We could not do this at our private homes. We couldn't do this when we were traveling. We had to do this in our holy temple. So when our temple was destroyed, this spiritual connection was completely lost. We had no way of contacting God. We remember this day, we remember this experience by holding space for grief, by making space for sadness. Rabbi Alan Liu teaches that on Tisha B'Av, we don't just mourn the destruction of the temple, we mourn all the calamities after and before, from the 6 million people in our Jewish family who were killed in the Shoah, to the 10 scouts from the book of Bamidbar who brought back to Moses bad reports of our promised land. And as we hold space for grief, we can gain perspective. We can remember that eventually, through decades and centuries of struggle, we found a new way to connect with God in community. We created the institution of Jewish prayer, and we created the practice of Torah study. We even created 2 new sacred texts, the Mishnah and the Gemara, which we combined to form the Talmud. And eventually, through centuries and millennia of struggle, we made our way back to our promised land. When we complete our fast on Tisha B'Av, it has occurred to us in a deep way that despite our tragedies, we've made it. We're still here. Our fast ends, our mood shifts. As our grief dissolves into lightness, we prepare for another holiday less than a week after Tisha B'Av. This is our holiday of Tu B'Av, sometimes called Jewish Valentine's Day. On this day, Rabbi Arthur Waskow teaches the maidens of Jerusalem would lend to each other white dresses so that everyone had something beautiful to wear, and go out to the vineyards, calling out to the young men, "Lift up your eyes and see who you choose for yourself." This holiday reminds us that we need love. If you've been to a wedding recently, if you have a friend who just started dating someone new, or if you've been having sweet moments of connection and appreciation in your own relationship, you know the unique power of romantic love. Not only can it inspire us, not only can it restore us, it can bring us hope. When we see a couple under the chuppah, we remember that it is possible to be inspired to commitment, even and especially when life is uncertain. We know that love can inspire happiness, and we know that love can inspire courage. So this is our month of Av, holding space for grief and sadness, for happiness and courage. We know we can experience destruction, and we know that even so, there is the possibility of renewal, the possibility we can grow back stronger. This is why the month of Av is our comfort, our consolation. So this is what we should do this time of year. We should allow ourselves to be comforted. This is how we can make the most of our summer. This is how we can best prepare for our holidays ahead. We should take comfort. We still have so much summer left. Have those barbecues, and of course those barbecues. Go on vacation. Take a walk on the beach at sunset. Enjoy the early sunrise. Appreciate these things even more than you otherwise would, knowing that they are gifts that you are receiving right now. These are our dog days of summer, and this is our Menachem Av, our month of comfort. Let's savor it. Let's enjoy it. Let's make the most of every minute. Shabbat Shalom.